and welcome to our second program in the Poetry Month of 2019 for Reading Aloud. Today it is Women's Voices in Poetry, 1830 to today, and it was curated by the lovely Cari Malone. And I'm excited about this one because women in poetry, while we all think of Emily Dickinson and others, women in poetry have been a strong voice for years and years and years, centuries. And it's one of the forms of literature that women really are strong in. And so it's always fun to go back and to read the future. So we'll get you started. Ina, are you coming up? Okay.
Keep talking there.
So I'll keep talking a little bit. So we have a program on Monday, and that'll be our final program in Poetry Month. And what's our program? It's curated by Nancy. I know that, but
It's called Beasts, Bugs, and Birds.
Beasts, Bugs, and Birds. Oh boy.
Perfect for Earth Day.
So I'll turn it over to Ina. Thank you.
Good morning or afternoon, as the case may be. This is our second of 3 programs in honor of National Poetry Month. And it is, as you see, Women's Voices in Poetry, curated by Cari Malone. Please stand. Yeah, okay. So Cari chose the subject and she chose the poems. We begin with Emily Dickinson, and you must know that Emily didn't live to see any of her poems in print. And even years later, years after she died, they did not appear in the form in which she wrote them. But now, why are you looking at me? But now we have so many women who are published poets that I'm sure Cari had a hard time selecting which ones to put on this program. I think was already mentioned that we have a third program this Monday at noon right here, and it is called Beasts, Bugs, and Birds. And whereas today's program is on all kinds of subjects written by women, Monday's program is written by all kinds of poets about birds, beasts, and bugs. So I'd like to introduce the members of Reading Aloud, the senior center-based poetry reading group who've been around for a long time. So over there is Michael Chan, Chuck Felling, Nancy Lynch, Kathy Mitchell, the famous Cari Malone, Mary Gutman, Betty Norbeck. I think I have everybody, and I'm Ina Lowenberg. So I am leading off with Emily's poem. The soul selects her own society, then shuts the door. To her divine majority present no more. Unmoved, she notes the chariots pausing at her low gate. Unmoved, an emperor be kneeling upon her mat. I've known her from an ample nation choose one, then close the valves of her attention like stone.
The Pike by Amy Lowell. In the brown water, thick and silver sheen in the sunshine, liquid and cool in the shade of the reeds, a pike dozed, lost among the shadows of stems. He lay unnoticed. Suddenly he flicked his tail, and a green and copper brightness ran under the water. Out from under the reeds came the olive green light, and orange flashed up through the sun-thickened water. So the fish passed across the pool, green and copper, a darkness and a gleam. And the blurred reflections of the willows on the opposite bank receives it.
Good afternoon. This Life by Rita Dove. My grandmother told me there'd be good days to counter the dark ones, with blue skies in the heart as far as the soul could see. She said you could measure a life in as many ways as there were to bake a pound cake, but you still needed real butter and eggs for a good 1 pound cake, that is. But I knew what she meant. She was always talking around corners like that. She knew words carried their treasures like a grape clusters around its own juice. She loved words. She thought a book was a monument to the glory of creation, and a library, well, sometimes just trying to describe jubilation will get you in a bit of tongue, so let's leave it at that. But my grandmother was nobody's fool, and she'd tell anybody smart enough to listen. Don't let a little pain stop you. Try as hard as you can every minute you're given, or else sit down and shut up. Though in her opinion, keeping quiet in noisy times was a sin against everything God and democracy intended us for. I know she'd like where I'm standing right now. She'd say a man who could measure his life in deeds was larger inside than the vessel that carried him. She'd say he was a cluster of grapes. My grandmother was only 4 feet 10, but when she entered a room, even the books came to attention. Giants come in all sizes. Sometimes a moment is a monument. Sometimes an institution breathes like a library, like this halcyon day.
If Mama Could See by Lucille Clifton. If Mama could see, she would see Lucy sprawling, limbs of Lucy decorating the backs of chairs, Lucy hair holding the mirrors up that reflect odd aspects of Lucy. If Mama could hear, she would hear Lucy's song rolled in the corners like lint, exotic webs of Lucy's size, long Lucy spiders explaining to obscure gods. If Mama could talk, she would talk. Good girl, good girl, good girl. Clean up your room.
No Loser, No Weeper by Maya Angelou. I hate to lose something. Then she bent her head. Even a dime. I wish I was dead. I can't explain it, nor more to be said, except I hate to lose something. I lost a doll once and cried for a week. She could open her eyes and do all but speak. I believe she was took by some doll's snatching sneak. I tell you, I hate to lose something. A watch of mine once got up and walked away. It had 12 numbers on it for the time of day. I'll never forget it, and all I can say is I really hate to lose something. Now, if I felt that way about a watch and a toy, what do you think I feel about my lover boy? I ain't threatening you, madam, but he is my evening's joy. And I mean, I really hate to lose something.
Filling Station by Elizabeth Bishop. Oh, but it's dirty. This little filling station, oil soaked, oil permeated to a disturbing overall black translucency. Be careful with that match. Father wears a dirty, oil-soaked monkey suit that cuts him under the arms, and several quick, saucy, and greasy sons assist him. It's a family filling station, all quite thoroughly dirty. Do they live in the station? It has a cement porch behind the pumps, and on it a set of crushed and grease-impregnated wickerwork. On the wicker sofa, a dirty dog, quite comfy. Some comic books provide the only note of color, of certain color. They lie upon a big, dim doily draping a tabaret, part of the set, beside a big hirsute begonia. Why the extraneous plant? Why the tabaret? Why, oh why the doily? Embroidered in a daisy stitch with marguerites, I think, heavy with gray crochet. Somebody embroidered the doily. Somebody waters the plant, or oils it maybe. Somebody arranges the rows of cans so they softly say, "Eso, so, so, so," to high-strung automobiles. Somebody loves us all.
Cinderella by Sexton. You always read about it, the plumber with the 12 children who wins the Irish sweepstakes, from toilets to riches, that story. Or the nursemaid, some luscious sweet from Denmark who captures the oldest son's heart, from diapers to Dior, that story. Or the milkman who serves the wealthy eggs, cream, butter, yogurt, milk, the white truck like an ambulance who goes into real estate and makes a pile, from homogenized to martinis at lunch. Or the charwoman who is on the bus when it cracks up and collects enough from the insurance from mops to Bonwit Teller. That story. Once the wife of a rich man was on her deathbed, and she said to her daughter Cinderella, "Be devout, be good. Then I will smile down from the heaven in the seam of a cloud."
Next came the ball. As you all know, it was a marriage market. The prince was looking for a wife. All but Cinderella were preparing and gussing up for the event. Cinderella begged to go too. Her stepmother threw a dish of lentils into the cinders and said, "Pick them up in an hour and you shall go." The white dove brought all his friends. All the warm wings of the fatherland came and picked up the lentils in a jiffy. "No, Cinderella," said the stepmother, "you have no clothes and cannot dance. That's the way with stepmothers." Cinderella went to the tree at the grave and cried forth like a gospel singer, "Mama, Mama, my turtle dove, send me to the prince's ball." The bird dropped down a golden dress and delicate little slippers. Rather a large package for a simple bird. So she went, which is no surprise. Her stepmother and sisters didn't recognize her without her cinder face, and the prince took her hand on the spot and danced with no other the whole day. As nightfall came, the thought she'd better get home. The prince walked her home, and she disappeared into the pigeon house, and although the prince took an axe and broke it open, she was gone, back to her cinders. These events repeated themselves for 3 days. However, on the third day, the prince covered the palace steps with cobbler's wax, and Cinderella's gold shoe stuck upon it. Now he would find whom the shoe fit, and find his strange dancing girl for keeps. He went to their house, and the two sisters were delighted because they had lovely feet. The eldest went into a room to try on the slipper on her big toe, but her big toe got in the way, so she simply sliced it off and put it on the slipper.
The prince rode away with her until the white dove told him to look at the blood pouring forth. That is the way with amputations. They just don't heal up like a wish. The other sister cut off her heel, but the blood told as blood will. The prince was getting tired. He began to feel like a shoe salesman, but he gave it one last try. This time, Cinderella fit into the shoe like a love letter into its envelope. At the wedding ceremony, the two sisters came to curry favor, and the white dove pecked their eyes out. Two hollow spots were left like soup spoons. Cinderella and the prince lived, they say, happily ever after, like two dolls in a museum case, never bothered by diapers or dust, never arguing over the timing of an egg, never telling the same story twice, never getting a middle-aged spread, their darling smiles pasted on for eternity. Regular Bobbsey twins, that story.
The Blessed Angels by Toy Derricott. How much like angels are these tall gladiolas in a vase on my coffee table, as if in a bunch, whispering. How slender and artless, how scandalously alive, each with its own humors and pulse. Each weight-bearing stem is the stem of a thought, through which aspires the blood metal of stars. Each heart is a gift for the king. When I was a child, my mother and aunts would sit in the kitchen gossiping. One would tip her head toward me. Little ears, she'd warn, and the whole room went silent. Now before sunrise, what secrets I am told, being quieter than blossoms and near invisible.
Speech to the Young, Speech to the Progress Toward by Gwendolyn Brooks. Say to them, say to the downkeepers, the sun slappers, the self-soilers, the harmony hushers, even if you are not ready for day, it cannot always be night. You will be right, for that is the hard home run. Live not for battles won. Live not for the end of the song. Live in the along.
Chicago, after Carl Sandburg, Patricia Smith. This is just a different view of Chicago. Soul, butcher for the country, heartbreaker, stacker of the deck, player with northbound trains, the nation's black beacon. Frigid, windy, sprawling, city of cold shoulders. They tell me you have lied, and I believe them. For I have seen your Mississippi women stumbling Madison Street, searching for their painted city legs. And they tell me you are evil, and I answer, yes, I know. I have seen babies cooking their hair, fingering blades, changing their names to symptoms of jazz. And they speak of souls you swallow, and my reply is, on the shadowed faces of men in the factory lines, I have witnessed the beginnings of the furthest falling, and have answered, so I turn to the people who spit at my city, and I spit back at them before I say, come and show me another city with head thrown back, wailing bladed blue, field hollers, so astonished to be breathing and bleeding, spewing electric rhythms rhymed in a defiant ass whooper, shaking its massive fists at swelling southern towns.
Feral as a junkyard mutt, taut, muscled against his enemy, shrewd as an explorer, pitted against an untried land. Wily as a Louisiana boy, faced with days of concrete, wiry-headed, digging, destroying, deciding, swallowing, expelling, swallowing. Under the rubble, thrusting forth, laughing with perfect teeth, shedding the terrible burden of skin, laughing as a white man laughs, laughing even as a soldier laughs, addicted to the need of his next battle, laughing and bragging that under that skin is the cage of his ribs, and under his ribs beats a whole unleashed heart, laughing. Laughing the frigid, windy, sprawling laughter of a southern man, folded against the cold, sparkling, sweating, proud to be, soul, butcher for the country, heartbreaker, stacker of the deck, receiver of northbound trains, and the nation's black beacon.
Quarantine by Evan Boland. In the worst hour of the worst season, of the worst year of a whole people, a man set out from the workhouse with his wife. He was walking, they were both walking north. She was sick with famine fever and could not keep up. He lifted her and put her on his back. He walked like that, west and north, until at nightfall, under freezing stars, they arrived. In the morning, they were both found dead, of cold, of hunger, of the toxins of a whole history. But her feet were held against his breastbone. The last heat of his flesh was his last gift to her. Let no love poem ever come to this threshold. There is no place here for the inexact praise of the easy graces and sensuality of the body. There is only time for this merciless inventory. Their death together in the winter of 1847. Also what they suffered, how they lived, and what there is between a man and a woman, and in which darkness it can best be proved.
What Were They Like by Denise Levertov. Did the people of Vietnam use lanterns of stone? Did they hold ceremonies to reverence the opening of buds? Were they inclined to quiet laughter? Did they use bone and ivory, jade and silver for ornament? Had they an epic poem? Did they distinguish between speech and singing? Sir, their light hearts turned to stone. It is not remembered whether in gardens, stone gardens, illuminated pleasant ways, perhaps they gathered once to delight in blossom, but after their children were killed, there were no more buds. Sir, laughter is bitter to the burned mouth. A dream ago, perhaps, ornament is for joy. All the bones were charred. It is not remembered. Remember, most were peasants. Their life was in rice and bamboo. When peaceful clouds were reflected in the paddies, and the water buffaloes stepped surely along the terraces, maybe fathers told their sons old tales. When the bombs smashed those mirrors, there was only time to scream. There is an echo yet of their speech, which was like a song. It was reported their singing resembled the flight of moths in moonlight. Who can say? It is silent now.
Bodybuilders Contest by Wisława Szymborska. From scalp to soul, all muscles in slow motion. The ocean of his torso drips with lotion. The king of all is he who preens and wrestles with sinews twisted into monstrous pretzels. On stage he grapples with a grizzly bear, the deadlier for not really being there. 3 unseen panthers are in turn laid low, each with one smoothly choreographed blow. He grunts while showing his poses and paces. His back alone has 20 different faces. The mammoth fist he raises as he wins is tribute to the force of vitamins.
When Death Comes by Mary Oliver. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright corns from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the missile parks, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, toward silence. And each body a line of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride, married to amazement. I was a bridegroom, taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world.
Let Evening Come by Jane Kenyon. Let the light of late afternoon shine through chinks in the barn, moving up the bales as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chafing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in long grass. Let the stars appear and the moon disclose her silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den. Let the wind die down. Let the shed go black inside. Let evening come. To the bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to air in the lung, let evening come. Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless. So, let evening come.
Before I read our last poem for this program, I want to tell you that these buttons that we are all wearing, designed especially for this program by Michael Chan, our reader who often chants as he just did, as you probably appreciated particularly. This is a poem by Edna St. Vincent Millay. The courage that my mother had went with her and is with her still. Rock from New England quarried, now granite in a granite hill. The golden brooch my mother wore she left behind for me to wear. I have no thing I treasure more, yet it is something I could spare. Oh, if instead she'd left for me the thing she took into the grave, that courage like a rock, which she has no more need of, and I have. Thank you very much for coming.